Disclaimer, this video contains content that describes a concept, not a mod. This is not going to be made into a mod. There are no plans to make it into a mod. If it happens, it's a happy accident, or some guy asked me for permission, but it's not happening right now. Good evening, and welcome to my video covering the 5th region concept me and my Discord have created. This one is a unique one, known as Rainworld Nadir. This region concept isn't going to be focusing on one whole area, but rather my idea for an additional ending added to the Watcher's campaign. As always, make sure to follow the artists who worked very hard on whatever social medias they post on. They all deserve a lot of attention for their incredible work. You can find all of them in the description. I'm incredibly proud of how this project has shaped up, so without further ado, let's get started with the prompt. The Watcher isn't sure what's so different about this place. But the portal it entered to get here was strange. Its colors were off, yellowish gold instead of deep blue, and it smelled caustic. As the Watcher travels through more of these golden portals, it wonders if it was truly meant to be here. Not to mention, something else is here with it, watching it, speaking to it. The Watcher wonders if it has fallen down some sort of trap. The only way forwards is down an ever-spiraling rabbit hole of dangerous and increasingly frightening regions as it wanders closer to what truly lies in the bowels of everything we have come to know. The path to the Nadir is a long one, but it always begins the same way. A golden portal smelling of caustic void fluid, crackling in the center of a hidden room. As the Watcher steps inside, it finds itself transported somewhere else. A chill wind blows past them as they stare off the edge of a large grated balcony. They're very high up. This region, known as the sheer cliffside, takes place on the edge of a large mountain ridge dotted with upright rock formations. It's cold but not snowy. Sparse tufts of grasses and twisting trees poke up from between the rocks. The cliffside is pocked with cave entrances and large infrastructure, making traversal either consisting of treacherous jumps or creature-filled cave dives. The creatures of this area are equally dangerous as its traversal, all having evolved to climb or fly to reach their meals or escape from predators. The Watcher will have to be quick on their feet and confident in their movements to avoid a plummet to their death or the snapping jaws of a predator. Tangling above the rocky cliffs are the branches of a tree with a long, storied history in benefactor civilization. Once used as massive ornamental bonsais, the Junico trees have been naturalized into the ecosystem of the sheer cliffside. You can find them more or less all over the place, poking out from between the cliffs with their branches twisting to either form a canopy or a platform for you to hop on. Some of the larger trees act as more traditional terrain, but even they have a bunch of smaller branches which act as a unique type of obstacle. They bend under your weight, and if you step near the end of one of these smaller branches and then jump, you'll find that the flexible bark acts as a springboard to launch you upwards into hard-to-reach areas. In other rooms, these thinner branches will also have a variety of either fruits or cones on them, depending on whether it's a male or a female tree. These cherry-like fruits can be knocked down by jumping on the branch or by throwing rocks upwards, and provide a decent food source if accessible. The cones, on the other hand, act like rocks. They can either be plucked straight from the tree for an easy-to-use obstacle with nearly infinite supply, or dropped on the head of a predator in their massive numbers to heavily damage and stun it if it's walking below the branch. All in all, the Junico trees make this region significantly more interesting to traverse, but the Watcher isn't the only one who can utilize them. Our next creature can be found wandering along almost every surface of the sheer cliffside. The iron lizards are a persistent threat to the Watcher's safety. These heavily armored lizard variants can be found slowly climbing along the rocky slopes, fervently patrolling and defending their territory every cycle. Iron lizards are persistent hunters, tunnel visioning hard on the Watcher with nothing but a glance, using their powerful climbing legs to leap horizontally and attempt to run the Watcher through with their sharpened rostrum. These creatures are really hard to deal with when in a bad situation. They won't even give up after the Watcher uses their invisibility, continuing to slice around the area where the Watcher was most recently seen in an attempt to hit them while they're invisible. Attacking them is also unreliable. They are quite heavily armored, even on their back. You need to flip them over with a rock and launch a spear at their stomach to properly deal with them. That, or lead them to another one of their kind. These creatures are fiercely territorial, to the extent where locking eyes with another iron lizards will initiate a duel to the death. They will fight until one ends up impaled or tumbling down the cliffside. You'd best make haste while this happens, or else the victor's gonna catch up with you. Our next creature can be found hopping between rocky outcrops along the cliffside. The ram deer is a powerful and hefty herbivore with a bad attitude and the horns to back up its impulses. These creatures can be found around the most treacherous areas of the cliffside. Descended from reindeer, these creatures can often be found munching on the fruit of the juniko trees. Despite their size, they are very jumpy, likely due to the abundance of dangerous predators. As such, they've got quite the bad case of prey animal rage. If the watcher gets too close, or they just feel particularly aggressive, the ram deer will respond with a powerful headbutt that will send the watcher tumbling. This isn't deadly on its own unless the watcher is already injured, but it will often result in the watcher falling off a cliff to their death. These creatures can become less of an inconvenience if one wants to put in the work to befriend them. They're not quite trusting enough to let the watcher ride atop one, but they will become significantly less willing to smack you up. All it takes to curry favor with the ram deer is to feed them the fruit of the juniko trees, which they'll quickly snap up with their long tongues. Make sure you keep your distance while they're eating though, they get especially jumpy when they can't keep watch. Our next creature is another slope denizen. The ladder loaches are, as their name suggests, descendants of loaches. These seem to have evolved to take their niche vertical, using hooked feet and a bunch of air sacs to wander along the steep slopes of the cliffside. They hunt in the same way as traditional loaches, but with a notable twist. The ladder loaches have a large antenna atop their heads with a bunch of scent receptors near the end. They'll use this first, attempting to sniff out any prey in a cavern before sticking their wriggly doodads in and rooting around for something to grab and pull out. They can mostly be found along the most vertical of cliff faces, but don't fear if one threatens you. There's a good way to deal with them. All you really need to do is spear the antenna. That'll stun it for a good long while, but if you're looking for a more permanent solution, if you manage to catch one from a good angle, a well-placed spear to their backside will cause the air sacs to burst, causing the loach to struggle to maintain its footing. Another rock or spear to the head from here will send them tumbling down to their death. The final creature of the sheer cliffside is, as is traditional for this series, also its most fearsome. The blink gnats are the arguable apex predators of this region. Despite being called gnats, these creatures are anything but minuscule. These predators can often be found perched atop rocky ledges, waiting for any sound cue to denote prey nearby. Upon hearing something, it will swoop down in a deadly pounce, attempting to grab their soon-to-be prey. Should they miss, they'll simply perch again on another ledge and wait. But should they get hit, their prey should expect a rather gruesome end, being taken away alive by the blink gnat to their den. These dens are placed in indents in the mountains, so high it doesn't even rain. But that's probably not what you'll be thinking about when you're here. You'll probably be a lot more focused on the horrifying insect larvae that wriggle inside the nest. The blink gnat will, rather unceremoniously, drop you into that bed of sharp-mandibled maggots, which will then proceed to rip you apart. Well, not all the time. If you're fast, you can either fall down the cliffside to return to the room you were caught in, albeit plummeting into it with no promise of ground beneath you, or fight your way out, though considering being grabbed by the blink gnat means you lose your spear, it's likely better to attempt an escape instead of trying to 1v8 a bunch of insect larvae twice as long as you with mandibles the size of your face. The blink gnats get their name from not their horrifying child-rearing tactics, but instead from the sacs on their back, which are full of a type of glowing gas that not only lets them float around like a vulture, but also allows them to glow at night like a firefly to attract mates. If you stick around in the uppermost rooms of this region where the rain never touches, you can even see a pretty little display. How nice. Just be wary not to make any noise while you're here, unless you want to dive into the deadly spaghetti. If the Watcher explores this region long enough, they'll find that no other portals spawn here outside of the one they entered through. Instead, what spawns at the bottom of this cliffside is a bundle of karma flowers. Upon eating one, the Watcher will find themselves receiving the same boons that karma flowers traditionally give, but they'll also find their vision begin to spin as they fall to the floor and awaken in a strange place. The air around the Watcher is a deep blue. Ripple space? Void spawns swim about in circles, ignoring the Watcher completely. As they exit from the cavern they found the karma flowers in, the world is completely different. The crags that make up the cliffside have been shattered, floating now as fragments of rock with the mosses and grasses having grown gray and lifeless. In the center of the sky floats something different from anything the Watcher had ever seen before. Filaments of gold, both fleshy and string-like, spiral about in the air, letting loose bright particulates that drift down through the infinite abyss beneath it. In the center of this thing lays the symbol for ascension, the 10th and final karma. This symbol in the center swivels to meet the Watcher's gaze, and a voice rings out.
Ah, you're here. I was wondering when you'd stop meandering about. To think, of all the things to warrant my presence, it would be something as small as you. Granted the powers of a god by some irresponsible whelp, what a mess you've got yourself into. Using the pathways you make to do nothing but eat and sleep. They'd have to forgive me for thinking you weren't a problem. But you are a problem. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea the harm you're causing. You couldn't comprehend it, as simple as you are. But here's one thing you might be able to understand. Your redemption is already underway. We'll meet again, if you know what's good for you.
The end of its monologue is met with the sound of a bell ringing very loudly, and as quickly as it appeared, that thing vanishes as the world tumbles back into view, and the Watcher finds themselves in another wholly unique region. The portal back to the sheer cliffside lying behind them. A warm wind blows past the Watcher's head. The sound of rustling grasses fills their ears, and as they look up, they find themselves staring at a vast grassland adorned with the silhouettes of ancient structures sticking up from the dirt. Colossal shadows move in the distance, and the Watcher wonders what else could be wandering about in the undergrowth. This area is the Windswept Plains, a colossal grassland filled with life, most of it hostile, this is Rainworld after all, but also quite beautiful. The majority of plant life here is made up of the tall grasses that act as both a shroud from aerial predators and a darkening curtain to allow whatever creepy crawlies lurk in the mud below a safe haven to hunt you down. However, it's not just the creatures you should be wary of here. The high competition for nutrients within the plant ecosystem has led to the rise of a more bloodthirsty species of flora, the bile gullet. This carnivorous pitcher plant has a habit of making meals of any fools who aim to get at its delectable fruit. These little red fruits hang down from a leaf above a roiling pit of digestive fluids. They're possible to get either with a projectile or a well-timed jump, but be wary as you balance atop the precarious lower branch, as one single slip will spell doom for the Watcher. Bile gullets themselves also have a bit of visual differentiation going on in their maturity and success rates. Famished bile gullets will appear brown and wilted, while nourished ones will have bright yellows and reds along their pouch and more fruits to pick from. Gameplay-wise, these wilted bile gullets also serve a purpose, as their weaker stems make it much harder to stay balanced on the lower branch, making them quite a bit more dangerous. Despite their rather gruesome habits, the bile gullet can serve a function, as the other inhabitants of the Windswept Plains don't have the advanced intellect that you do, and won't notice them as easily. Leading a predator over to a bile gullet could be a really good way to dispatch one that just won't leave you alone. Our next creature to inhabit this area is arguably its strangest. The buzzstritch is a Miros bird adjacent thing that runs through the tall grasses, snapping its metal jaws and making buzzing noises as it passively meanders about. They used to spend their time cutting down trees, but well, seems as though they've lost interest in that. For the most part, the buzzstritch won't be too interested in killing you. Even if they were above ground, they're more likely to flee, making them easy to avoid. The real danger comes in their behavior once you've fled into a pipe. Their hearing is impeccable, and it seems that they've mostly been nourishing themselves on grubs found beneath the soil. This makes them a danger if you're in a pipe. A buzzstritch's main hunting mechanism is to shove its saw-like implement into the ground and begin buzzing away, cutting deep into the wall or floor. Eventually, that blade will come out the other side, pass through that pipe, and pass through you or whatever else is in that pipe. Rather predictably, this will usually end in the creature's death. If a foolish buzzstritch is within earshot of you crawling around through a pipe and assumes that you're a tasty larva, there's very little to stop them from stabbing you without much thought and plucking you out of the ground. These foolish little weirdos have quite the strange way about them, but as long as you don't put yourself in a situation where you can be mistaken for something they'd want to saw, they usually won't saw you. This next creature on our list might terrify some of the more bug-averse folks in the audience, the Vespid. This carnivorous, parasitic wasp-like creature can often be found buzzing around the plains in search of the many centipedes that populate the area. Upon finding one, they will swoop down and sting it, paralyzing it and flying it into one of the many shelters around the plains. After a bit, the Vespid will leave the shelter where it stored its food and guard for the remainder of the cycle. You can tell when a Vespid is guarding a meal by the rhythmic thumping of their wings against their abdomen that they produce while they stand guard. Luckily for the Watcher, slugcats aren't usually on the menu, but you should still be careful. The Vespid will sting you if you stray too close to their claimed shelter, and if you kill one or steal its food, the global Vespid reputation will go down. At low enough reputation, they rather predictably will kill you on sight, delivering a fatal sting whenever they see you. If you feed them and leave their meals well alone, eventually they'll even end up letting you in to take a bite for yourself, though you'll need to be wary. Not every Vespid is willing to let you in. If they are offering you a bite, they'll usually stop the thumping noise as you approach, so that's a good way to tell. In general, despite the abundance of shelters in the region, you'll need to make sure the one you want isn't taken up by an angry wasp in its successful quarry. The next creature found within the Windswept plains is the Decempede. Despite being named after a centipede, they seem to have more in common with reindeer and other mammalian creatures than the centipedes around this region. Found in small herds roaming the plains, these creatures' most important feature would have to be their ability to rapidly heat up their bodies at will. This ability is a holdover from when these creatures previously used to collect and smelt metal from around the plains. Now it's used as self-defense. Whenever attacked, an adult Decempede will rapidly heat up their bodies to a red-hot state, and then attempt to bite whatever is attempting to harm them. Touching the Decempede while in this state will result in an effect similar to the coils in thermal relay. When not attacking something, these omnivores can be seen grazing on mosses, grasses, and fruits, while also hunting down and snapping up infant centipedes and noodleflies. Though occasionally you'll see them guarding offspring, these offspring are born without the conductive plates that let the adults safely heat up their bodies. They get these through consuming raw minerals around the area, a time-consuming behavior that will stop the herd for some time as the babies eat. During this time, Vespids can be seen actively attempting to hunt the offspring, so the adults are on tight watch, being aggressive even to the Watcher while their young eat. The most aggressive member of the herd will almost always be the leader, denoted by its increased size and bluish coloration. These leaders are usually significantly stronger and significantly more aggressive, capable of maintaining their heated up state for longer. If the Watcher does want to kill a Decempede, it's pretty damn hard, but not impossible. The best practice would be taking out the legs. They have 10 in total, but if over half of them are disabled, they will fall to the ground and be rendered immobile, allowing for an easy kill. Not that you'd get much for killing one outside of earning the ire of its packmates. The final creature in the Windswept Plains is also its largest, known as the mammoth spider. This creature isn't always a mammoth, though, as it has variations depending on its size. A hatchling mammoth spider is functionally a passive wolf spider. Found hiding in mud pits, their backs are covered in nutrient-rich mud, and you can already see some plants growing atop their muddy exoskeleton. Even at a young age, these spiders are heavily armored, requiring more spears to kill than a traditional wolf spider. This armor prevents them from running along the background like their flightier cousins, though they can still climb poles. As they mature, they'll eventually grow into an adolescent mammoth spider. Now being a number of times larger than the Watcher, their backs are covered fully in grasses. They still inhabit the mud pits, but can now be ridden as the grass along their backs is able to be held onto. But this might not be the smartest idea, as these variants are omnivorous and will attempt to eat the Watcher. But they are quite slow and won't chase too far. As the mammoth spider grows to an adult, though, they'll get properly massive. Only one of these individuals can be found in the region, but it is truly worthy of the name mammoth. These individuals are completely passive, likely owing to their size simply being too big to pay the Watcher any mind. This single adult mammoth spider exists almost solely to allow you passage through the right side of the region, where the mud is so thick you'll drown if you attempt to climb through normally. You're unsure just how old this huge individual is, but it's definitely not the only one in this region. In some rooms you can see other massive individuals going about their day in the distance, nothing but looming shadows with a grassy top. Past the large mammoth spider lies a clearing in the grasses with a bundle of karma flowers. Hesitantly, the Watcher eats one and finds themselves falling back into that weird ripple space-esque area again. This time the grasses that were swaying in the wind now lie completely still, Void spawn as tiny as the Watcher's finger or as big as a centipede swim between the blades of grass as that thing floats overhead. Its voice rings out the same as always.
The fugitive returns. It seems you took my words to heart. I suppose you deserve an explanation then. This world is stitched with golden thread. Like roots and veins, they intersperse through all things, invisible to the eyes of simple ones like you. They hold tight the veil of reality. The tapestry is the world you used to know, where time and space are solid truths. You have been granted a pair of seam rippers, little animal, and you are using them very liberally. The pathways you've torn are already threatening to release something that should have stayed hidden. I am kind. I am giving you the opportunity to fix your mistake. I am an envoy of something greater. You have already taken the first few steps. I will assist you in taking the next.
The bell rings again, though this time it's a little closer, and the Watcher returns to reality. The envoy, if that's what it's to be called, is once again nowhere to be found. This time, the place they wake up in is nowhere near as refreshing as the windswept plains. As they sit up, they spit out a pool of salty brine, and they push off the grimy metal floor. It's dark here. The low hum of machinery in the walls accompanies the Watcher as they travel into the next room, only to be met with a window that leads out into the pitch-black depths of the Deepwater chasm. The Watcher seems to have stumbled into the remains of an old information storage facility, one that was built miles underwater in a trench. The entire facility is lit up a dull green by the old lamps that still flicker. For the most part, the region is pretty dry, but a notable portion of the rooms do indeed have the cold ocean leaking in through cracks in the walls, causing some partial flooding. Some other rooms have significantly more flooding, though, and will require some deep ocean swimming to get through them. This not only exposes the Watcher to some dangerous deep ocean fauna, but also puts them at risk of falling victim to the pressure. This deep underwater, oxygen is a luxury. Even a short swim in the open abyss will require at least one bubbleweed as not to drown, as the pressure pushes down on the Watcher, forcing them to use more air. Though the open ocean isn't the only risk, as the entire facility is full of wholly unique underwater life. The first notable living thing seen here is also arguably the most important: the oracle vines. Found in most places growing from the structure and around its larger rooms, these plants have spread their roots through the old metal walls and deep into the biomechanical information storage devices that litter the area. They not only extract nutrients from these biomechanical machines, but they also extract the knowledge itself, now displaying it as a variety of symbols glowing from the vines themselves. These oracle vines are quite durable and bouncy. Grabbing onto one and pulling will let the Watcher slingshot through the water at high speeds, a way to pass some of the more difficult underwater sections. The facility's level of disrepair should have led to it completely collapsing, falling apart into multiple pieces, but it looks as though these parasitic vines are the only thing keeping it together. How ironic. The first creature found deep in the facility is also arguably its cutest, the sea pygmy. These luminescent little dudes can be found in almost every corner of the region, wandering about on land or in the outer rooms, though they tend to prefer the inside. They glow like lantern mice, but are nowhere near as heavy, allowing the Watcher to use them more reliably, though don't consider them a delicacy. They're very poisonous. Similar to the tardigrades, eating one will cause the Watcher to grow weak, though dissimilar to the tardigrades, the sea pygmy's poison is lethal, killing in just under 1 minute. This poison can also be used to coat a spear. This toxic adaptation has seemingly led the sea pygmies to a solid place amongst the food chain, near the bottom but far from easy prey. This lack of any real predators has caused them to not even really develop any survival instincts. If you pick one up and eat it right next to the other ones, they won't even run away. They seem to travel in groups, primarily seeking out fresh corpses to feed on. You can oftentimes see them both inside and outside the facility, crowding around a corpse and consuming all the meat off of it. They can even be seen eating from the corpses of those that died to sea pygmy poison after eating one. Though if the Watcher does want to eat a sea pygmy and not almost immediately die afterwards, the only real way to do it is to kill it with a spear and then leave it in a shelter. Once the cycle passes, the sea pygmy will have become cured, now becoming a dry and non-poisonous form of itself, though they still only give one food pip and probably still taste just absolutely awful. The next creature in this region is also its most common predator, the telescope lizard. A descendant of the eel lizards, these lizards have adapted to deep sea life, possessing an incredible sense of sight denoted by their massive eyes. These creatures can be found hiding amongst the deep sea plant life. Their bodies are covered in kelp-like growths that help them blend in, where it uses its head that looks remarkably similar to glowweed to attempt to lure in prey. They swim very quickly due to their flipper-like legs, but are very slow on land and possess limited head armor, so you'll rarely see them chase you above the water. They emit light usually, so they're not too hard to see if you don't get fooled by their disguise. They'll eat almost anything they can find, including scavenging off of corpses and even eating each other, though they have evolved away from eating sea pygmies. In fact, they now fear them enough to run away from one if you toss it in their general direction. You'll oftentimes see them before they see you, even if you don't notice that they're there because they're hiding in plain sight. So make sure you plan your paths wisely as not to get caught out by one. That, or just throw in a sea pygmy and watch them run like the devil from the little goober. Our next creature is the radiodont. A fully aquatic predator, these strangely shaped shrimp-like creatures can be found out in the open abyss, though sometimes they'll journey inside some of the more heavily flooded rooms. These creatures have a fairly lazy way of hunting, extending an array of long sensory tendrils through the water as they drift around, feeling for vibrations in the water or the scent of possible prey. Whenever they catch something, they'll charge at it ravenously, swimming much faster than the Watcher and snapping down with a deadly pair of scythe-like jaws, thrashing their prey around before swimming off with it to eat a well-earned meal. These creatures aren't always found in obvious places, drifting about though. They can also be seen attempting an ambush, hiding within the rubble as their sensory tendrils wave around their hiding spot looking for prey. These creatures are fairly simple hunters, so they won't often come onto land, but they will lunge at you if you just barely escape them, so don't taunt them on the shore if you can help it. The final creature of the chasm is, as is tradition, also its most terrifying, the Magna Cauda. This gargantuan cephalopod is a descendant, or perhaps an ancestor, to the squid cauda. The large wings on either side luckily aren't used for flying, but rather for swimming. These creatures are found almost exclusively in the open abyss, but are very persistent hunters. They'll chase after you and attempt to ensnare you with large tendrils and pull you towards their mouth. They're not as fast as the radiodonts, but they possess something the radiodonts don't, the ability to follow you on land. After a Magna Cauda has spotted you, they will follow you through the next couple rooms, sticking their tendrils through cracks in the walls and pulling themselves through, standing atop their legs like stilts and crawling after you. They're a lot easier to avoid on land, as only 2 of their tentacles will be used to try and grab you, the others being used to keep them up. But they're easily large enough to take up a majority of most of the rooms in the region, so getting cornered is a real possibility. If you're spotted by one, prepare for a pretty hectic chase. As the Watcher travels deeper into the chasm's facility, they eventually end up finding the largest storage room. The old knowledge bank's entangled in oracle vines, with a bundle of karma flowers laying in front of a window in the very center. Upon eating one, the Watcher braces themselves and the world falls away again. When their vision returns to them, they find themselves in the ruins of that facility. The oracle vines, now a spectral blue, hold together fragments of splintered metal. The water outside is nothing more than a cloudy black void. The envoy floats in front of the Watcher again, as odd as ever.
You're making better progress than I thought you would. Do you know the path you're taking? You're heading to the Nadir, the lowest point of all, between all cycles, beneath all places, no matter where you head. The Nadir is always beneath you. You should feel blessed. You're one of the few to ever get the chance to see what it looks like. The Nadir will grant you the opportunity to fix your mistakes, just as it granted me the opportunity to fix mine. I promise you what lies beneath is well worth the path there. The sight alone is worth every step of the journey.
Yet again, when the bell tolls, it's closer. Is it coming from below? How odd. When the Watcher awakens this time, it's in complete darkness. The air is dusty, every movement the Watcher makes reverberates and echoes against the ancient stone walls. How deep underground is this place? As the Watcher continues walking through those old, hollow halls, they might find that despite the silence, they are not alone in the interred ruins. This area is the ruins of an old, ancient living space, akin to the depths. Buried by time under massive amounts of rock, the only creatures that live here are ones that have become well accustomed to life in total darkness, or those that were left behind by their creators. Lighting the way amidst the interred ruins are the pale gloom shrooms. Appearing primarily as bundles of glowing mushrooms sprouting from the corners of rooms, these mushrooms are the primary source of both food and light within the ruins. Unlike the closely related mushrooms found all over Rainworld's map, these mushrooms harbor no toxins or chemicals and are perfectly edible, granting 1 food pip. When picked and not eaten, however, the gloom shrooms will emit light in a large radius that will slowly shrink over time until eventually it fades entirely, making the Watcher's primary light source often need replacing. These mushrooms seem to feed off the waste of other creatures that live here, sprouting primarily on piles of dung or long-decayed corpses. Sometimes you can even see bundles of these mushrooms sprouting from cracks in the dirt, or all over the odd mounds of stone and metal that lay in some of the corners. The next creature found within the ruins is the relic crab. These hermits can often be found hiding their soft abdomens within the various vessels left behind by the ancients that made this place. These creatures can range in size from an infant centipede to as large as a vulture, hiding in increasingly large relics as they age. At a young age, they are a food source for the Watcher, hiding in teacups. They require a rock to break their ceramic shells before you can grab and eat them yourself. As they get larger, though, they turn into opportunistic predators, either fleeing from or hunting down the Watcher depending on their size. Eventually, they get large enough to hide into old boxes and chests, and they eventually become capable of picking up the Watcher and consuming them with ease. These larger specimens spend most of their time resting within the relics they call home, being nearly indistinguishable from an uninhabited box or urn until the Watcher gets too close. When not sleeping, these larger creatures can often be seen pulling their shells behind them as they hunt down smaller creatures. Even the small relic crabs aren't safe from their older relatives. Brutal. The next creature found within the ruins is the monitor lizard. A frightening, stealthy predator, these creatures are cut from the same cloth as the white lizards, but hardship has led them to evolve into ruthless hunting machines with sharp wits. These lizards are primarily found silently stalking about the pitch-black rooms. Their hearing isn't the greatest, but their eyesight is incredible, seeing anything that moves from a shocking distance away, even in the pitch-black darkness. While within the darkness, they are fully invisible. As they slowly approach their prey, the only thing they will see in the darkness is the red glint of the lizard's eye. Eventually, this glint turns much more obvious as the lizard rears up for its lunge. If the lizard misses this lunge, it will oftentimes flee, as these creatures are fragile and skinny, though they often will only go in for the lunge if their target is in the dark, and if not, they will trail on the outside of the light's range, waiting for their chance. If you're being stalked by one, the best thing to look for is not only the glint of their eye, but also looking at the pipes you go through to see if one is following you. If you know one of them is following you, taking a gamble on throwing your light source at the monitor lizard will stun it if your aim is correct. While they flail around in attempts to regain their footing, a good spear will take them out, as they're only about as durable as a blue lizard. Make sure you watch your step as you travel through this area. These lizards will take any opportunity for a meal. The next creature to be found within the ruins is also arguably its oddest: the profane saints. Across the interred ruins lie the same statues found in the depths, resting with their legs crossed, staring out at the hollow rooms they've called home for so long. But sometimes these statues might have some odd traits. As the Watcher nears it, they can hear something within cracking, and blackened tendril-like growths extend from within the statue, forming a profane saint. These growths seem to come from far below, perhaps some sort of fungus or plant, but they only appear here. These defaced idols don't do much on their own. They primarily emit a strange aura in the room that they're in that intensifies with closeness to the saint. The effects of this aura include distorting the Watcher's vision, draining their ripple meter, greatly decreasing the strength of any light sources, and eventually even draining food pips if the Watcher spends too long within the room. If the Watcher ever dies in the room with the profane saint in it, they'll find that their ripple level will go down by 2 instead of 1. This effect even ignores the protection given by karma flowers. The effects of these odd statues might be strange, but they're a little too dangerous for you to properly investigate. If you find yourself in a room with a profane saint, it's best not to dawdle. Get a move on quick. The final creature in the interred ruins are the House Maidens. These constructs can be seen in the larger rooms, wandering about and dusting off the old artifacts with their many arms. They're passive for the most part, entirely absorbed in cleaning the rooms they inhabit. They only become an issue when the Watcher disturbs their work, either by walking over an area they just dusted, or by bringing so-called trash into their room. The House Maiden has no tolerance for trash. If you litter or bring something dirty across their pristine floors, you will be punished. The House Maidens enact this punishment by striking with their sharpened forelimbs, impaling the Watcher for a one-hit kill if they break the rules. These creatures appear similar to the Guardians, though much less karmically attuned. They're made of a dark stone engraved with unreadable symbols. Despite their relation to the Guardians, they are killable. By wedging spears into the cracks along their armor, you can fell one, though this is a tough task without utilizing other tools like explosives, or by utilizing flashbangs. A flashbang detonated nearby the House Maiden will cause its joints to seize as it struggles to recuperate, allowing for a few free spear hits into its weak spots. Felling one doesn't give you a major reward, but if you return the next cycle, you'll find that its corpse is a nearly endless supply of gloom shrooms. As the Watcher wanders through the old living spaces of this ancient people, it eventually travels farther down, past the old barracks, past the storage chests, all the way to a room that looks like a crypt. Here life is even scarcer, and as the Watcher moves into the next room, they see a bundle of karma flowers resting atop an unknowably old coffin. Upon eating this karma flower, the world falls away again. The rock cracks, revealing the deep blue space behind it. The void spawns swim behind the shattered pillars, and the envoy's tendrils drift about, weaving through the cracks in the old stone. It speaks again, but this time its voice is oddly solemn.
History always seems to find a way to repeat itself. It's a cycle, isn't it? Those who came before us had a similar plight. Did they worship the void in all its splendor? Yes, but they too knew the cycles were a prison. But if all the world's a prison, are we truly better off without it? Wherever they went, what's left of them is buried under dust and rock. The recycled remnants of the oldest world, falling is new. The wheel keeps spinning, beautiful and terrifying as ever. That's why you had to be stopped. You're right above it now. You only have one direction to go. I'll meet you again before you reach it.
The bell doesn't toll this time. Instead, the ground beneath the Watcher's feet begins to crack, the tendrils of the envoy pulling at the stone until there's no ground left to stand on. The Watcher falls fast. The blue abyss stretches out in all directions as void spawn whiz past in the distance. Eventually, as the Watcher looks down, they find themselves seeing something come into view. Gold. The Void Sea lies right beneath them. As they approach the plane of gold, their fall begins to slow. The envoy's tendrils hold them, pulling on them to slow their descent. Eventually, they slowly drift down towards the surface, until they're placed gingerly down upon something. It's weird. They've been placed upon an island of blackened stone, floating in the sea of void. Remnants of old structures stick up from the rubble, void fluid drips from cracks in the stone. This place is odd. The creatures that wander here don't resemble anything seen anywhere else in the world, harboring the most primal and most distorted forms of life. The cauldron is the Watcher's last step before they reach the Nadir. Outside of the weird fauna, the first thing the Watcher is probably going to notice about the cauldron as they wander is probably going to be the slug cats. Or more accurately, the outlines of them. It's the Watcher's memories. The cauldron is odd. Everything here has a connection to the void, from the largest inhabitants all the way to the microscopic. Everything here is capable of affecting you. The memories are a species of void spawn, lingering on the outermost fringes of reality, the same spaces the Watcher has visited time and time again. When in such close proximity to both them and the void they were born from, the memories will take shape. formed of the shadows within the Watcher's mind. Visions of a childhood, of friends, parents, all lost. Having left behind everything to reach the Nadir, it makes sense only now would the Watcher be tempted to look back. Gameplay-wise, the memories are fairly simple. They're ghosts. They can either stand still to watch, they'll follow you around, or they'll wander aimlessly. Though if a Watcher is currently affected by a karma flower, the memories may begin to follow them. If too many are gathered, they may even become hostile, beginning to damage the Watcher in a similar way to the large void spawn found in Ripple Space. After the Watcher dies by any means, the memories will wait around the corpse, able to be found again in the next cycle, watching the place where the Watcher died the cycle before. The next creature found within this odd place is the Void Trilobite. These odd creatures can be seen floating around the cauldron. They are massive predators that appear as a blinding orb of light surrounded by odd arthropod parts. These creatures are mostly harmless, their only method of interacting with you being through the long, light-tipped antenna that they can occasionally use to rip open tears into Ripple Space, from which deadly void spawn will emerge and chase you down. The main threat of the Void Trilobite comes if the Watcher ever chooses to enter Ripple Space while near it. In Ripple Space, the Void Trilobite looks notably different, now appearing as an array of tendrils resembling organs, all contained within a bone-like porous cage. Their antenna that used to be tipped with a white light is now tipped with a reddish distortion that can be used to fire more of that reddish distortion. If the Watcher ever touches this distortion, they will begin to take damage, and their screen will distort in a similar way to if they're being attacked by one of the deadly void spawn. It looks as though these creatures are predatory, but they make no actual attempt to eat you. Perhaps they consume something else, in a similar vein to the void spawn themselves, consuming some other part of you and leaving the body behind. It's concerning, but certainly interesting. The next creature found within the cauldron is the Void Star. Appearing harmless at first, these flower-shaped beings spend most of their time floating above the Void Sea, scanning the islands and the Void Sea's surface for prey with their 4 long, stalk-like eyes. They often float well out of view, but sometimes they can be seen quite close to the ground. Their petal-like limbs effortlessly propel them forwards. If the Watcher stands beneath one of these, the cross-shaped mouth on the underside of the creature will open, and 4 long, sharp limbs will extend out from it, making attempts to stab the Watcher. Upon being hit by one of these, the Watcher will find themselves instantly impaled and dragged to the creature's mouth to be consumed. These creatures are passive hunters, only giving chase at a slow speed, relying on their ambush to get a good kill. This low-effort lifestyle might be an adaptation to the odd living situation in the cauldron. Without much tangible organic prey here to feast on, they've likely evolved to conserve energy, floating about much slower in their own odd little way. The next creature found here is the colossal comet worm. These large creatures can be found floating above the Void Sea, growing up to the length of a leviathan on average. Luckily for the Watcher, though, they're passive. So passive, in fact, that the Watcher can even grab a hold of their long, flowing tendrils and hitch a ride across large gaps similar to a sky whale. Though these creatures are anything but unwilling to do violence. If met with hostility, those same tendrils will be used to squeeze the life out of the Watcher and drop them into the sea below. These creatures' coloration will shift with the dimension that they're found in. Gold comet worms are found outside of Ripple Space, vanishing upon entering it, whereas blue comet worms will only be accessible in Ripple Space, leaving behind nothing but slight distortion in the regular world. It is unknown what they eat. Perhaps they slip into Ripple Space like a whale diving underwater to consume the void spawn in massive numbers, using the tendrils to collect them like a jellyfish. Or perhaps they simply filter feed off of whatever nutrients can be suspended in the air down here. It's impossible to know, just be happy you're not on the menu. The final creature found within the cauldron are the Precedents. These predecessors to the Guardians have long since been abandoned in this place far beneath the reality you know. Their true function has long since been forgotten, having been left only with the vague assumptions of their purpose, that being to prevent unworthy individuals from accessing the Void Sea. It seems that in their state of disrepair, that duty has been turned into a mindless desire to judge and to execute everything they see. Using the same telekinetic grasp as the Guardians, they will lift and slam the Watcher repeatedly. Though their impaired state of functionality makes it harder for them to do this easily, they may stumble and drop you, or simply forget to finish the job. They're also pretty bad at staying focused and can be distracted by any other creature entering their line of sight. Though if one does have you in its grasp and you don't feel like relying on it making a mistake, their shells are much more fragile than their functional counterparts, allowing for spears to easily pass through. While nearly impossible to kill, attacking them will stun them as they regain their bearings and attempt to remove the spear. After attacking one, though, they will enter into an enraged state, using their telekinesis now to find spears and rocks and fling them in your direction. Though this isn't all the precedents have going for them. Upon entering Ripple Space, you can see the odd effect they have on the void spawn around them. Bluish chains connect from a familiar symbol. They have them all on leashes, keeping the void spawn nearby. It's unknown why they do this. Perhaps it's an unconscious thing. Perhaps it's an attempt to prevent something like the Watcher from slipping past so easily. Either way, it's inconvenient. The best thing the Watcher can do now is hope not to earn their ire while they make their way towards the Nadir. Finally, in the center of the cauldron, they reach it. The place beneath all other places. It looks like a fissure going deep into the earth. The Void Sea should have leaked in here, but it hasn't. The stone is slick with golden residue, and occasionally leaks of void fluid create little waterfalls that trickle down into the chasm. A chasm made of benefactor architecture. The Watcher travels downwards, the golden distortion getting thicker as they dive deeper below. This tunnel going hundreds of feet down below where the Void Sea's surface should be. Eventually they find themselves entering into large tunnels. Void fluid collects amidst twisted metal piping that points in one direction, an unreadable sign long since dilapidated. Was this place a laboratory? Through a final set of doors, the Watcher enters into a room with a huge hole that leads straight downwards. Gold shimmers at the bottom. Void fluid leaks from pipes that covers every surface along the walls. These pipes all culminating in the mass attached to the farthest wall. A leathery, semi-transparent sack containing organs and metal pipes pulses with life. From below it lies a sheet of dead flesh and the robes of a benefactor still clinging to the bottom of this thing. Golden tendrils twist around it and out of it, and Karma 10, no, the envoy's symbol lies in the center. There are no karma flowers here. This isn't an illusion. This is the envoy, what it truly is. Something long since forgotten, something swallowed by time and by reality, a machine and a man mixed into one, two corpses sharing the same fate.
Here you are. Don't look so surprised. Don't you know it's rude to stare at a stranger's grave? Right beneath you lies the Nadir, the answer to our little plight. There is no way to close the paths you've made. Your mistake cannot be rectified so long as you continue to exist. With the end of your cycle will come your redemption, and everything will return to how it should have been.
The Watcher's heart sinks. As it attempts to step back, the ground beneath its feet begins to crumble, pulled away by golden tendrils.
I was told about you, the wild animal that threatens reality itself. A funny thought. A foolish thing stumbling about, unknowingly entangling yourself in something much greater than you could have ever imagined. You remind me of myself. In truth, we are both simple. That's why I take no joy in this.
The tendrils pull one last time. The rocks give way, and the Watcher tumbles downwards. The envoy had tricked it. Or perhaps it was merely wishful thinking that such a grand thing could simply be wiped away. As the Watcher falls further, the envoy's form fades away. Eventually, even the walls around them vanish to the darkness that slowly encroaches on all sides of them. Perhaps in a show of acceptance, the Watcher closes its eyes, but it sees something. It sees itself wandering alone on a dark, watery plain. Then a rain begins. Every time a droplet hits the water beneath them, it creates a ripple. Each one grows, fades, and then vanishes, leaving space for the next. These ripples, they're the cycles of everything and everyone to ever exist. The effervescence. each droplet its own lived experience. The rain falls upon everything, no matter how far the Watcher travels, no matter how far they look. There's only one place the rain never reaches. Beneath the surface of the water, there's nothing but darkness and something else. The Watcher sinks, accompanied by the tendrils of the envoy. It sees the blackness that makes up a world without the cycle, so mortifyingly empty and vast. The Watcher sinks deeper. This is it, isn't it? This must be the Nadir.
Can you see what I see? From far below it grants you perspective. We strained our eyes to see our purpose, a way to end the cycles, a way to free everything from bug to god, an end to the pattern. From the Nadir, I've seen what we feared most. There is nothing for us beyond this prison. There is no solution. The wheel must keep spinning, for what happens if it stops? Do we too cease with it? Is there a world for us beyond the golden plane? Can we exist beyond this endless repetition? Without that strife, what are we?
The Watcher plummets downwards, and the light above it vanishes. As they go even lower, their final redemption is fast approaching. That golden surface, the end to this all, is there really nothing beyond it? Or is that merely the speculation of someone who was left behind so long ago? Just like them. The Watcher closes their eyes to brace for impact.
I hope those that swim grant you the same mercy they gave me. May we both never learn the truth, little fugitive. May the wheel never stop spinning.
The bell tolls again for the final time, and it sounds closer than ever. And there you have it. That's the region concept. This one was a lot more headcanon-y about the lore aspects of the Watcher, but hey, whenever the Void Weaver or whatever it is in the files comes in with the big DLC update and actively tells me the envoy sucks and you're stupid, then this video will serve as a cool little time capsule for all my ideas. Either way, as with most region concepts, you're getting a Logs thing after this. Ooh. It's going to be a double feature. Not only is Logs 5 coming incredibly soon, for real this time, but the Envoy is also getting his own little mini-sode discussing his origin. I'm really proud of this goofy little siphonophore boy, and I hope you all enjoyed him in this region concept. Another big thanks to all the artists who put in such amazing work to make this video possible, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you all soon.